All right, let's talk about Linux. You've probably heard the name, and maybe it conjures up this classic stereotype, right? A hacker in a dark room, green text scrolling down a black screen. But what if that whole image is just, well, completely outdated? In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and demystify the world of desktop Linux for the rest of us.
And just so you know where we're getting our info, we're leaning heavily on James North's fantastic new book, A Guide to Desktop Linux in 2025. It's seriously packed with practical, up-to-date advice, so we're going to break down the biggest takeaways for you right now.
So let me ask you something. Does it ever feel like your computer isn't really yours? Like it's working for some giant corporation instead of for you? Constantly pushing ads, trying to lock you into its services, making you feel like you're just renting it? Yeah? If you're nodding along, then you're going to want to hear this.
Okay, so to really get why an alternative is so compelling, we first need to get on the same page about the system you're probably using right now. Like, what is an operating system really? And more importantly, what are the hidden trade-offs we've all kind of silently agreed to with the big guys?
All right, an OS. The easiest way to think about it is as the middleman for your computer. It's the thing that lets your software, your web browser or your music player, actually talk to the physical parts of your computer. The screen, the keyboard, all that. Basically, it's the invisible boss that makes sure everything plays nice together.
And this is where it gets really interesting. When you look at the big two, you see they have, let's call them corporate priorities. With Windows, it's pretty obvious it's designed to sell you Microsoft services. You've seen the ads in the Start menu and all the data collection that's on by default. Then you have Mac OS. It's beautiful for sure, but it's famously a walled garden. It works amazingly as long as everything you own is from Apple. And wow, can they be slow to add features everyone else has had for years.
So, if that's the world of commercial, for-profit operating systems, what's the other option? Well, that brings us to Linux. And the key thing to get here is that it's not just another brand. It's a completely different philosophy.
And here he is. This is Tux, the friendly penguin mascot for Linux. He kind of represents that whole community-first vibe we were just talking about, which is a world away from the boardrooms at Microsoft or Apple.
Now, this is super important. When you hear free software in the Linux world, your mind probably goes to free of charge, right? And yeah, it usually is. But that's not the main point. The free is about freedom. The freedom to run the program however you want, the freedom to pop the hood and see how it works, the freedom to share it, and even the freedom to tweak it and share your own improved version. It's all about putting the control back in your hands.
And I think this quote from James North just nails it. Desktop Linux is a community effort, not a product. Think about that. It's not something packaged up and sold to you. It's something built together by a huge global community of volunteers and even competing corporations who all contribute because it benefits everyone.
All right, I can already hear what you're probably thinking. This all sounds cool, but aren't there like a million different versions of Linux? Which one do I even pick? And you're right. That choice paralysis is probably the #1 reason people get scared off. So let's make this really, really simple.
The book gives a brilliant, dead simple recommendation based on just one thing, your monitor setup. Got one monitor? Easy. Try Linux Mint. It's rock solid, easy to use, and if you're coming from Windows, it'll feel pretty familiar. Now, if you have multiple monitors, especially if they have different resolutions or refresh rates, you're going to want to try Universal Blue. It's built on newer tech that just handles that kind of complex setup way, way better. It just works.
The word installation can sound a little scary, I get it, but honestly, it really just boils down to these 3 steps. You download a single file, it's called an ISO. Then you use a simple tool to flash that file onto a regular old USB stick. And finally, you just restart your computer and tell it to boot from that USB. That's it. A simple installer guides you the rest of the way.
And no, you are not going to be typing weird commands into a black screen. We're talking about simple point-and-click tools like this one, Balena Etcher. You literally just choose the file you downloaded, choose your USB drive, and hit the big flash button. They've really made this process foolproof.
So, you're installed, you're up and running. What's it actually like day to day? Because for most of us, it all comes down to one big question, right? Can I still use all my stuff?
Well, first off, there's a huge change for the better in how you get your software. You know how on Windows you have to go hunting around the internet for a download, hoping you don't click the wrong button and get a virus? Yeah, forget all that. On Linux, almost everything is in a central software store. It's basically an app store for your computer. You search for what you want, click install, and you're done. It's safe, secure, and so much easier.
Okay, but what about the big names, the software you have to use? Well, a lot of stuff like Google Chrome or Zoom works perfectly, no problem. For something like Microsoft Office, you can use the web version, which is honestly really good these days, or there are fantastic free alternatives like LibreOffice. The toughest one is usually Adobe. But even there, you've got powerful web-based tools and native apps like GIMP, so you're rarely left without a great option.
And please, get that old idea of Linux apps being ugly or clunky out of your head. That's just not true anymore. The ecosystem today is full of gorgeous modern apps. I mean, look at this. This is an audiobook player called Cozy. It's clean, it's polished, and it's a perfect example of the high-quality stuff you'll find just waiting for you in the software store.
So that covers your daily driver stuff. But now we've got to talk about what is, without a doubt, the single biggest, most shocking change to happen to desktop Linux in years. And that's gaming. Yeah, I know. Linux gaming used to be a punchline. Today, it's an absolute powerhouse. I mean, for decades, it was simple. If you wanted to play PC games, you used Windows. End of story. Linux wasn't even on the map. But that is completely flipped on its head. It didn't happen overnight, though. This was a seismic shift built on decades of quiet collaborative work that finally exploded into the mainstream. You can really see the story unfold here. It all started way back in 1993. But the real earthquake happened when Valve, the company that runs Steam, decided to throw its full weight behind it. They poured in a ton of money and talent, created this amazing tool called Proton, and then they released the Steam Deck. You know, that little handheld PC that sold millions? Well, guess what? It runs Linux. And all of a sudden, making Windows games run perfectly on Linux went from a side project to their #1 priority.
And this is the part that just blows my mind. The technology that translates Windows games to run on Linux has gotten so unbelievably good that in some cases, a game will actually run better on Linux through this translation layer than a version made specifically for Linux. Let me say that again. The translation can be more stable and get you more frames per second than the real thing. It's absolutely wild.
You know, for as long as I can remember, people in tech have had this running joke about the year of the Linux desktop. It was always, next year it'll happen. And of course, it never did. But with an OS that respects the user, is easier than ever to get started with, and is now a legitimately top-tier gaming platform, you really have to wonder, is the joke finally over? Is it finally here?